It's Tuesday. It's 8 p.m. It's G-Star Vault live. Bigfoot Q&A. Evening, everyone. Hope you enjoyed that starter. Let us know in chat if you're on board. Evening, Mickey. Nice to see you. Thanks for coming along. I'm just going to start this puppy going across the bottom. And I'm hoping I can figure out how to get comments showing on the live stream. If not, I can see them in front of me. Is that helping at all? Don't think so. Let's take that away. Hopefully Monty will come on board and he'll be able to tell me how to do it. Anyway, good evening and welcome to this one-off special G-Star Vault live Bigfoot Q&A. And as I said in the description, the reason why I'm doing this is because on the recent Bigfoot Best of the Best special that I did, I had some issues with some footage, and I'd filmed about 26 minutes of a Q&A section, which I had to remove. And so that basically, I didn't want to do that because there was questions that people had asked me, but I thought it would be better to do it live anyway and test what my ability was on doing a live stream by myself. So thank you, Mickey. Thank you for joining. I've got my tea with me because you said earlier on Facebook, tea and biscuits. I really wish I knew how I could get the comments up and showing, but don't stop. Oh, he's just on the phone. Don't stop commenting because, as I say, I can still see it, but I can't figure out how to get it showing on the live stream. And also, I just wanted to mention before we get into the Bigfoot Q&A, don't forget to tune in tomorrow on Wednesday at 8 p.m. for the TNG review show. I believe this week it's a pretty good episode. If I could just... Oh, that's it. Remember Me. Yeah, excellent episode. Make sure you check that out. The guys are doing a great job with the TNG review and really finding their momentum with that. So tune in tomorrow night at 8 p.m. And so let's get into this Q&A. Oh, hopefully, I don't know, Mickey, let me know in chat, or anybody else let me know in chat whether you got to watch the Bob Lazar versus the Pentagon video before this one. I should have timed that for a little bit earlier because there was a bit of an overlap, but hopefully if you've watched that, then maybe after we've done some Bigfoot questions, we can get into some questions about that if you guys got any questions. Evening, Kevin. Great to have you on board. I know you're not with us on Facebook, so it's great that you happen to see that this live stream is happening tonight. This one-off live special with just me doing Bigfoot Q&A. So if you want to throw your questions, as the banner says below, into the chat. Oh, he's not seen it yet. You've only noticed it half an hour ago. Okay, no worries. Well, it's not connected with this live stream anyway, but, you know, if you want to ask any other questions about any other content that we cover on the Vault, then you can certainly ask me those later as well. But I'd love to get through some Bigfoot Sasquatch questions to start off with. But first of all, I want to sort out my cup of tea. Because as I said earlier on Facebook, Mickey said he was going to come along with some tea and biscuits. I haven't got any biscuits, but I have got tea. And I've got my special little G cup to have my tea in from my flask. Because I'm down here in the cabin at the bottom of the garden. So not like I have I should get a kettle down here really, but it's not like I'd be able to use the kettle on the live stream. It would make a bit of noise. So, evening, guys. Hope you're having a good start to your week so far. Let me know in chat if you are and enjoying the weather today. And if anybody's coming along or watching this later that isn't from the UK, I hope the weather is equally as beautiful and summerlicious for you guys as well. So, as I said, I am struggling to figure out how I get the comments showing in the box like we usually do on the live streams, but hopefully you guys can see the chat box on YouTube anyway, which is all cool. So yeah. Oh, and that's a cool feature. I can bring up comments. So yeah, if you guys want to start firing off the questions or any questions you've got for me about Bigfoot, Sasquatch, or any questions in general, if I like the question, I've just figured out how I can feature it and show it. So that's a pretty cool, nice little feature. And then we can have a little bit of a chat and a discussion, and everybody can get involved then. But here's a cup of tea. Now, if you notice me shaking, it's not because I'm nervous, honestly. It's because I've been gardening all day and I've been lifting, pulling, whatever. And I've now got 2 trapped nerves in my hands and I'm just like shaking like mad. It's very weird. But yeah. So, guys, fire off those questions. Whilst we're waiting for some questions from the live chat, I'll go through one of the questions that I had, which I did film for the Bigfoot special. These questions came from different people from over the last couple of years on different platforms, either on like Facebook or TikTok or to some of our YouTube videos. And this first question that I'm going to go through was from Brian Clare from Pennsylvania, and his question was, how do you choose your best evidence? Evening, Monty. If you can tell me in chat how to get the chat box up on the live feed, that would be super, super useful because I can't seem to figure it out. Not that I think it's important, because I would hope that everybody on YouTube could see the chat anyway. And I can certainly see the chat. And I found out a nice feature because just to show everybody Monty's on board, there his comment saying, hello, evening, Monty. You missed my little plug for the TNG review tomorrow. I was very clever with my lead up to it because I was like, I can't remember what the episode is. Oh, yeah. Remember me. Yeah, so excellent episode. So join. Oh, he says I can't do it. Well, that's fine. I am happy with this feature that I found, where if somebody asks me a question, I can pop it up on the screen as a featured comment, and that's pretty cool. And then we can have a bit of a discussion around it. But yeah, I was doing a cool plug for the TNG review show tomorrow, so everybody make sure you get along for that one. Right. So as I was saying, Brian Clare from Pennsylvania, how did you choose, or how do you choose your best evidence? Well, I would say probably about 95% intuition. Now, that sounds like I'm just going fly. I mean, it's most stuff out there, and until we find DNA evidence or a body or something that's going to really embed the scientific evidence that's required, then everything is kind of, you can't 100% prove that it is fact. So you have to review it, digest it, and then basically just try and go with your gut instinct on a lot of it. I find once you've eliminated all the other bits, if a lot of, that's why I love like the A-Carts model that I've used on some of the G-Star vaults. That's because it breaks it down. So you either add or eliminate stuff, and then what you're left with is kind of a balance of whether it's something that then you can go forward with your gut and say, yeah, I think there's a good chance of that. Excuse me, sorry. Just have to stop that one. That's bad. Camera's going all over the place and everything. I'll be having words later. Let me just try and fix that a moment. There we go. Right, so that was the answer to my first question, and thank you for that, Brian Clare from Pennsylvania. Pretty cool question, but the answer is that you have to just eliminate all the obvious, scrutinize it. If you're left with something where there's still questions that can't be answered yes or no, then you just go with your gut intuition. And let me know in chat if that's something that you kind of assign to when you're looking at all the different videos and things about Bigfoot, UFOs, etc. If it's your gut and your intuition that you go with. Yes, I think that was my other half saying, you're on the internet. But yeah, I've now hopefully resolved the problem and said, I am live, so please do not call. There you go. So I want to get a question featured by one of you guys up on the screen. So please fire away with your questions. If you're still on board with me, that would be awesome. No question is too silly either. You will not call, Monty. That was bad enough having to deal with that interruption. But yeah, please don't call me on my phone. Message me. That's absolutely fine. But not WhatsApp, because that's only on my phone as well. I'm surprised Mickey has kept this quiet for this long. He's usually got so much to say. So fire away with a question whenever you're ready. In the meantime, if you guys do I get points? Points for what? Not disturbing me? I'm sorry, I'm having to adjust my camera here because it completely all went. Should I say tits up? Just a moment ago with the random interruption. Here we are, 15 minutes into the live show. And I'm still waiting for a question. Is there a question time? No, you guys have to fire the questions. I get the points for answering. So I don't ask the questions. You guys ask the questions to me. And then I give my answers. But whilst I'm waiting for you guys to formulate a question, I'll go to one of the others that I had prepared for the live special. I kind of covered this one in the special, but Grace from Leeds has asked me on Facebook Messenger what brought you to researching the phenomenon of Bigfoot, and I kind of answered that on the special, and the main thing that really instigated pushing me forward was the Patterson Gimlin footage and watching a breakdown. I'd seen it many years before, but then I watched a breakdown video of it, and some of the evidence to prove its genuineness was basically so overwhelming that it just made me a light go on in my head. And since then, I've just been curious and just want to keep researching and seeing what people are finding, what people are discussing. And that was covered on the special anyway. But thank you very much for that question, Grace, who was from Leeds. And it was nice getting that question on Facebook Messenger because I get so many random messages that I don't understand. A lot of people saying, I don't need any help, thank you. And that's all to do with our Vault Facebook page. But you can obviously join our group. Our group on Facebook is now private, so you have to ask to join. I'll put a link in the description. I didn't before the start of the show, but I'll put a link in for after the show if you'd like to join us on there and join in with any of the discussions or subjects that we cover on there. And you can post your own stuff and ask people what they think as well. So that's what it's all about. So yeah, if you're interested, check out the description at some point, and I will put a link in there to the Facebook. Some of my best commenters have been on board and watching, like Kevin and Mickey, and I can't believe there isn't any questions coming. Okay. It's a good question, Monty. Thank you so much for it. And the question, as you can see on the screen, is my YouTube channel is 2 years old today. Where do you see your investigations going over the next 2 years? Yes, so celebratory anniversary. Sorry, I forgot to mention at the top of the stream to Monty for 2-year anniversary of his Monty Ban YouTube channel. Where you get all the Fortnite and all the unboxing episodes, all that cool stuff. He celebrated his 2-year anniversary, so big thumbs up and congratulations on that, Monty. But the main question, I guess, for me is, where do you see your investigations going over the next 2 years? Well, let me change that to our investigations. Well, I, again, mentioned it a little bit in the special, but talking about other content that we cover here on the channel. This week, actually, on Friday, myself and Monty are going to go and do a night sky watch, and we're going to go wild camping, and we're going to film quite a bit of that, which will feature either in a separate standalone episode, or we'll feature it as part of one of the future Monty Zones. Might even be appropriate if we can get it edited enough for the next Monty Zone. Yeah, what could go wrong? That's a very, very good question, or a statement. What could go wrong? A lot. Yeah, so we're going to be out filming that this Friday, out in the wilds on Dartmoor, wild camping, doing a sky night watch, seeing if we can capture anything. Lots of people have lately, so I'm really keeping my fingers crossed, and it helps getting out there, out of the way from all the light pollution that you get in built up areas. So hopefully we might capture something, who knows, or it'll make a fun episode just seeing us trying to negotiate around wild camping. But yeah, so that's the sort of thing that we're going to be doing, hopefully more of in the future. We birthed these channels. I know Monty Ban did with his original channel, and then this one kind of through lockdown. And so a lot of our build up and a lot of what we did was based from isolation, and you know, a big lifesaver actually to help with being communal and you know, kind of still keeping in touch with each other. So that was cool. But as time has evolved and we're coming out more and more through the pandemic, and you know, getting more and more confident with being out and about, I guess we've realized, well, now we can take it to a different level and do a lot more location stuff within our means. So we're definitely doing that this Friday. So that's the sort of thing that's going to be coming up. And that's where the investigations, I hope, are going to continue to go over the next 2 years, as well as going back to my special. What I said in there is I would love to get over to the Pacific Northwest if I could, what's the word, justify the costs and having some extra money to travel to the Pacific Northwest just to go and do some filming for a YouTube channel trying to hunt down Bigfoot. That would be awesome. That would be the dream. So I guess in answer to the question, that would be the dream. Right, we've got some other questions firing from Kevin, which I'm loving. So let me just read this one before I put it up on the screen. Good question. So here's the question from Kevin. G, do you think the change in color for the Bigfoot is connected to the higher, like Alaska seems to be lighter than like Florida? So I guess, to extend what Kevin is saying there just a little bit, you have the Yeti within the whole cryptozoology and sort of connected to Bigfoot. Down in Florida, you've got the skunk ape, which definitely looks very like Kevin's pointing towards. It looks very dark. It almost looks the same color as a chimpanzee. So yeah, it's very dark. And then when you get up to the Pacific Northwest and like the lower areas of Canada and Sasquatch, you get more of a kind of brown rather than a black. And then, as said, in other areas of the world, you've got relations to similar parts of the phenomenon in terms of the Yeti, etc. So really great question. Thank you for that, Kevin. And I think the answer behind it is that for me, something that I think no, it actually wasn't. I don't think it was Thinker Thunker. Somebody else covered it. And the reality is that if you're looking at for Bigfoot and Sasquatch, if you're looking at another species of hominid that has survived undetected by our known scientific world, and there's a very good chance that they're very much like us. And what I mean by that is that each of them are very different. And I guess the same as things like dogs, skin, even their fur reacts different in certain temperatures. So if it's more sunny, their skin burns the same as ours does, and it kind of changes the color of their hair and their pigmentation, especially over years and years of evolution. So I think it's the same as what you find in other species that are similar on this planet that live in different places but come from the same background. You'll see a change in color, and I just think that again, even with a lot of hominid stuff that has been found, like pre-human other species of hominid that we featured on this show before, science has been able to tell us, and archaeology has been able to tell us, that although they're the same species, they're very different in appearance because of fossils and skeletons that have been found where slight different features, again, between like things like male and female. So I think hopefully, without going round the houses, that's answered your question, Kevin. And he asked another question, which is in relation to that, so I'll bring that one up. And size to Alaska seems to have the giants. Yeah. Again, I don't know what you think about the skunk ape, Kevin. I know that you sent me a message or put something in comment about a documentary that you'd watched recently, I think, about the skunk ape and everything that was going on down in Florida. I'm going to say I'm not an expert on it. I've not looked in it as much as I do direct my research towards the Pacific Northwest. There is part of a reason for that is that I do think that the skunk ape in Florida is possibly just another unknown or developed or mutated species of ape. Because everything that I've seen that I do think is genuine, I have seen some really good pieces of footage which don't look like they've been doctored. They don't look like they've been particularly staged. But those also to me look like, again, I've said it before on, I think, the original live stream that we did about Bigfoot. But one of the things that can go towards proving that there's still chance that we could find and reveal that Sasquatch is real, because only about in the early 2000s, a bunch of scientists were able to finally prove that was up until that point considered a myth about this species of giant chimpanzee in the Congo. and they finally found them, and or one of them, or however the discovery was made. And so for over 100 years, this creature believed to be a myth. And so I think that there could still be species of ape, chimpanzee out there that, and also everything, I guess, evolves over time, or I use the word mutate, but there's a lot of stuff where, if a monkey escaped a zoo in Florida, whatever it could have been eating on, a different diet could have made it grow differently, and who knows? But I feel that the skunk ape is more, as the title says, it's more ape rather than a form of, uh, you know, pre-human, or not pre-human, like hominid. Okay, I'm sorry. Stop talking. I've got to stop talking at moments just to read your questions. Yeah, so Kevin's just mentioned there's some good footage of Florida. Doesn't seem as big though, still massive. Actually, yeah. The other thing is that you're right. The number of sightings that are happening in Florida, actually, if we could put all the different states on a chart, like we would a YouTube video, we'd probably be seeing that there's more hits in Florida right now. And that's the other thing that makes me think that this is a growing um, colony or species of large chimpanzee or ape that escaped into the wilderness and the Everglades of Florida and is breeding, and therefore population increase being seen more frequently by people, but is particularly something that we're not used to seeing. Because if you saw, I think if most people were out in the wilderness and just happened to come along an average sized chimpanzee, you'd be a little bit freaked out. And I think if you came, these chimpanzees, certainly the ones that were discovered in Congo, are almost the size of us. Certainly if they extend themselves, but obviously in their natural position is a bit lower. But if you stretch them out, they're exactly the same. So this is how big these guys are. So yeah, it's kind of, for me, the whole thing down in Florida, that could be an explanation for that. And then somebody might ask, well, why don't you think that that's the same situation in the Pacific Northwest? I just think that there's footage and stories and elements of evidence that I've seen that just argue against that. And if you go back to the Patterson Gimlin footage, although the gait of Sasquatch is very different to us as humans, they still walk in a very upright position that you just wouldn't see in an ape or a chimpanzee or something from the do I want to say monkey family? I don't know if gorilla is still classified as a monkey. Let me know in comments if you know if monkeys and gorillas are from the same offshoot. Or I'm pretty sure orangutan's different. Like orangutan's different again. But yeah, anyway. But welcome back, Mickey, from your phone call. Glad you could rejoin us. If you've got some questions, Kevin's been firing off some good ones. If you've got some great questions to ask about Bigfoot or Sasquatch or anything else, please let me know, and we'll keep the questions firing and keep this live stream going. It depends on your questions, because I have got some stuff prepared if anybody asks the right question, but unless anybody asks that question, it doesn't really relate. Although I guess I could say, one of the questions that somebody asked me before I filmed the Bigfoot's Best of the Best special. I'm just trying to look. Where was that question? Oh, that's a big question, and I was hoping that one of you guys would do it, so I can't really do that. But I did mention. Let me just share something on the screen a moment. Let's cancel that for a minute. It is up. I'm just going to share something with you, which I was going to use on the special. That's why it's a problem. That's what I've got to do first. I always forget that. There we go. Keep firing those questions whilst I'm trying to work out how to share my screen properly. There we go. So hopefully you guys can see this one. Let me see if I can zoom in a little bit. There we go. Right. So this was based on a question that I was asked. Oh, I've cut off some of the text by zooming in. Let's take that back. There we go. So one of the questions that I was asked was, am I a believer in the Bigfoot phenomenon? And it's a pretty big, tough question to ask. And what I was planning on doing on the special was talking about all the different kind of belief systems that are out there. Because in my opinion, and tell me if you disagree with me, I think that the biggest part of that pie is, as you see the chat there, the core belief system around Bigfoot, Sasquatch, or even the Alamasti in Russia, is that it's an undiscovered form of hominid. Now, that is the core big believers. In terms of people who believe in the Bigfoot phenomenon, I would say that that is the biggest percentage, and probably around about 70%. And then on the outside, as like a sort of partway fringe belief, you've got this, and it's quite recent, I would say, probably stemming back from the mid 90s. This sort of connection to aliens. People believe in this whole realm of belief. There's two different kinds of belief. There's those that believe that Bigfoot, Sasquatch are alien, and then there's those that believe that Bigfoot, Sasquatch is connected to aliens in some way. But that, I would say, would account for about 20% of believers. And then you've got the other real small outer fringe, where real fringe belief systems of people believing that Bigfoot, Sasquatch is well, I meant to say interdimensional there, or alternative explanation other than, so, there are some fringe beliefs out there, whether Bigfoot, Sasquatch is alien or interdimensional, something like that. So I just thought it was worth sharing that. But for me, if I'm asked if I'm a believer, I sit within that core. I am starting, as I mentioned towards the end of the special, I am starting to kind of look into the alien connection. Just because for me, as an open-minded skeptic, I can't sit here and go, that sounds crazy, if I haven't looked into some of the background, some of the theories, some of potentially if there's any evidence. So yeah, that's my that's what I'm going to be sort of looking at a little bit more in the future on my research. So Mickey asked a really good question. I'll bring this up on screen now. There's a lovely picture of Mickey. And there's his question: has there ever been any bodies or parts of bodies found? Before I fully answer this question, Mickey, I'm going to ask you guys a question. Let me know in chat what your answers are, and I'll give out some points for this. In the wild, if a creature dies, how long does it take for that body, that creature, to decompose to the point where there is no reference that it was ever there? Like every part of it is gone. How many days do you think it takes in the wilderness, undisturbed, untouched, for that to happen in the wilderness? Not just anywhere, like on the street in front of your house, but in the woods, in the forest, in the wilderness, how many days does it take? Oh, Monty's chimed back in. Did someone say points? Yeah, there's points up for this one. Don't Google it, but I'll hand out some vault points for anybody that gets close to the right answer. Get those answers in. How many days does it take for something to decompose in the wilderness without being touched? Now, whilst you guys are getting those questions in, I'll get back to answering the question. There is, depending on what level of a conspiracy theory you sit on, Mickey, there are conspiracies out there that bodies have been found. Now, the most common location where it's mentioned that bodies have been found is to do with the Mount St. Helens eruption. Now, my history isn't the best. Let me know in comments if you can remember when the Mount Helens eruption happened. I think it was in the late 90s or early 2000s, not 100%. And then with that situation, and they were obviously evacuating the area around Mount St. Helens, the National Guard was brought in. People that were involved in the incident and that were fleeing said that they saw Bigfoot. Some saw them die. So they assumed that there would have been bodies. They didn't go back to get the bodies, but they would have assumed that there would have been bodies. But because the military was there, because the National Guard was there, it's again under that title of conspiracy that the military did away with the bodies. Again, there is a conspiracy that there was some hair that was passed to the FBI back in the 80s, I believe, that was meant to be hair from a Bigfoot. It disappeared into the realms of the FBI for quite some time. When they eventually revealed the results of testing, it turned out that it was deer, or that's what they said. However, who knows whether they just said that. I certainly haven't seen any documentation that backs up their testing. But again, I would say, to answer your original question, Mickey, in terms of bodies, there is a big story around the Mount St. Helens eruption. If you Google it or go onto YouTube, I'm sure you can find something that walks you through that and what happened, and some of the eyewitnesses and accounts of people and what they saw. And people certainly said that they saw dead Sasquatch, and for that reason they thought it was going to come out, and then they were surprised that it didn't come out, so they assumed that then the military had covered it up. Okay, so thank you for that question, Mickey. Keep them coming. So Kevin says the Australian one interests him, and when he says the Australian one, he's referring to the Yowie. That's what they call it in Australia, the Bigfoot Sasquatch. I've seen some stuff on the Yowie. I'm going to be honest with you, Kevin. Again, I always have to be true to what I feel. I haven't seen anything that really fully stands out. I've seen a couple of bits of footage which I think could be really strong pareidolia. I don't think that someone who's trying to pull a fast one. In fact, I'll come to that point in a minute, actually. Yeah, I basically, I've seen some stuff on the Yowie as well. So yeah. Now, let's have a look at what Kevin's saying here. Did you know that Bigfoot is listed in Washington State Fauna and Fauna book? I know by spellings wrong. So I think, yes, you're right. There's a couple of states in, I think there's actually some national park services that actually sort of on a more official basis classify Sasquatch, Bigfoot as being real. And by that, I mean that they talk about it in their kind of training and induction to the guards and people that work in the national park to make them aware of all the kind of incidents that happen. And they kind of they classify it in the sort of same way as they do bears, really, and just being wary and being aware. And I think there's a couple of states in America where they take more of an official stance and less of a crazy cuckoo stance on the whole Bigfoot Sasquatch. So Mickey said 100 days to the question. I think, if I'm right, Kevin said 4 days, I think, to completely decompose. Yep. Thank you, Mickey. I think that was the date Mickey was giving me there for the Mount St. Helens eruption. That was 1980, so it was a bit of time ago. I thought it was a little bit sooner than that. I know it was in my lifetime. But yeah, you can read some really interesting stuff in relation to Bigfoot and Sasquatch on that case. But thank you for sharing that. So yeah, I think Mickey's answer to decomposing was 100 days and Kevin's was 4 days. So quite a bit away from the spectrum. Monty was keen for points, but hasn't actually given an answer. He says, depends. It could never be years or never if it fossilizes. Yeah, we were kind of talking about if it just died and decomposed on the forest floor, not anywhere like in a stream or in an event like a volcanic eruption or earthquake where it would cause fossilization. Yeah, just general decomposition. And the funny thing is, I was recently watching a video that covered this. And it was about, I think it was on the Flash of Beauty documentary. And if you haven't seen that one on Bigfoot, unfortunately, I don't think, unless you want to try and find it on, you know, a bit of a dodgy platform. If you're going to look at it on Amazon or something like that, you have to pay a little bit of a buy cost for it. Watching the documentary, it is a good documentary, and I'll talk about it in a little bit. But I just want to answer the question first of all. And that is, the decomposition. If something's on the forest floor, on the wood floor, and I watched, they show this video of it actually happening. It takes only 10 days, and everything is gone because of all the different creatures and all the different insects and everything in the woods and how they chew through it really, really fast. It decomposes and is completely gone, even the bone. So I think on this video, it was a deer that they had that had, died on the forest floor. And over a matter of 10 days with this clock going, playing it fast, it showed that it decomposed and there was completely no trace of it in 10 days. So when a lot of people say about Bigfoot and Sasquatch and the fact that a body has never been found, well, the thing is, and again, one of the things that really chaves me is when you're trying to talk to people about Bigfoot and Sasquatch and them understanding the sheer size of some of these areas where they're believed to exist and where they've sighted and been encountered. Just the Pacific Northwest is probably like, some of us, certainly everybody that's in chat right now, would go on to a moor or something like that, and you feel that you're really away and away from the hustle and bustle of life and out in the... Imagine the size of the UK times 8, and it's all just wilderness. Nobody literally lives there full time. It's uncharted by... well, not uncharted, but there's just nobody living there. The only people that go there are for passing through or visit purposes. And the sheer size of these areas, and this is the other reason why I'm kind of swing towards Alamaty in Russia. And again, if time allows, I'll come to that later. But in Russia, again, there's these huge expanses of space. Like, I don't know, something like 80% of Russia is just not even habited, and it's huge. And for these things to be out there, even if they die, unless you're in that Pacific area in the next 10 days, you ain't even going to see a trace of them, and it's going to be gone. Because if they are what we think they are, or what most people think they are, they're made of bone, skin, flesh, and it can easily be digested by nature within that as 10 days. Thanks for the comment, Mickey. That's crazy. Yeah. I know. And yeah, it does add an interesting angle to, again, this argument when a lot of people say, how come nobody's ever found a body? Here's another fact to that you can sometimes use in arguing with people who are skeptical about Bigfoot and Sasquatch and say about why has one never been found. There's an area in the northern part of California where there have been a lot of Bigfoot sightings, encounters, and stories. And actually, there's a documentary that's out about a guy who's a journalist, and in his youth, he used to work up there in the cannabis farms. And when he was working there, there was a bunch of other people that working there that told him a story about something that happened, or it happened while he was there. And years later, he's gone back. Now, one of the interesting facts that they give in this whole big area that's in Northern California, in the mountains, where there's all these cannabis farms, right? And again, masses of expanse of wilderness. In this area, there's meant to be 500, what they believe, or biologists believe, 500 types of a black bear species. But no body of this black bear has ever been found. And again, if you watch this documentary, they talk about how they believe it's roughly maybe 250 Sasquatch in that area. So only half of what there is of this bear. But they're saying that the sheer kind of evidence that they've got from a biology point of view is that there's like 500 of this type of bear, black bear. Don't know what the specific name of the black bear is called, but nobody's ever found a body of it. And it's been years since anybody's seen one. So when you start saying, why do more people not see them? Why do more people not find bodies of them? That's my answer. There's some really good evidence that backs that up. And it's about cutting through the chafe as well, because there's a lot of fake out there. So, and there's only a handful of genuine stuff. And that probably is also right, because the chances of people coming across these guys is very rare to none. Okay. Yep, good point, Kevin. Russia's massive, and I think 1/5 of the Earth's landmass, and lots of it, huge expanses of it, are unpopulated by humans. Just going on back to that documentary that I was watching, as I said, it's called A Flash of Beauty, Bigfoot. It's pretty new. It's a really good documentary up until the last bloody 10 minutes of it, and they introduce this father separately with his own kind of story. He believes that because he saw Bigfoot, it cured his terminal cancer. And then there's a section with his daughter talking about how she flew up to, I can't remember what the location was. I think it was the upper part of Washington or somewhere like that. No, Alaska. It is Alaska. And she flew up there and she took some photos, and the photos are awful. Like, literally, you look at them straight away and you go, those are the worst photos ever. And I was so frustrated because the documentary was so good up until that point. And it's only the very last bit of it. And funny enough, Thinker Funker, I actually put a comment, which was related to actually one of my videos that was on his page. And he then actually went and did an analysis of it and a breakdown to prove that it was a human in a suit. And it's just really bad why that ended up being on the end of such a good documentary. But I wouldn't say don't watch it for that reason, but I probably wouldn't pay for it. But it was a good documentary, but the end of it was just ruined. Yeah, again, if you ask yourself the question, when we're talking about coming across dead things or dead bodies or whatever, like, ask yourself, other than roadkill, how often do you come across a dead bird or a dead deer or and there's things dying all the time and we just don't come across them. And that's because generally the environment, it's the cycle of life, isn't it? And just pulls it in straight away. But it can be completely and utterly removed in 10 days. And I guess that's why roadkill sits there for a lot longer, because on the road, you don't have so many like worms and maggots and things like that to really get to the job. So Mickey's come up with another question. Thanks, Mickey. Has there been any recordings back in early history of Bigfoot sightings? Yeah, for sure. And I don't know how much you mean by early history, but I think there's some accounts of them going back to early Aztec, I think for sure. In most of Native American tribes, they're certainly the ones that would have stemmed from Canada, Alaska, and the upper part of Northern America. There's a lot of reference in their stories, in their songs to Sasquatch. That's where the name Sasquatch comes from. It's got very much a Native American background, and is a Native American word. In fact, actually, in a lot of Native American tribes, and I'm talking, you know, years and years ago now, not in modern day, when they used to carve the totem poles, they used to carve Bigfoot into them. And the funny thing that I found out recently about totem poles, which I didn't know, which is a bit interesting, is that the thing that's at the bottom of the totem pole is the most important. I always thought it was the thing that was at the top, but it's the thing that's at the bottom. And yeah, on a lot of things like carvings, manuscripts, cave paintings, and that would be probably more the Aztec, there's reference to Sasquatch. And actually, if you look at some history of stories, that they have a relationship with them, and they have a symbiotic relationship in terms of they respect each other's boundaries, and have therefore a relatively peaceful relationship with them. And that's depicted in a lot of paintings or stories. And Native American are very, one of their big forms of storytelling is their songs and their dances. And there are dances and songs related to Sasquatch. There's been some documentaries that I've been watching recently. If we come up more so to modern day, there's some of these tribes, as some of you will know if you know your American geography and history, is that big parts of America are Native American reservations. And what that means, if you don't fully understand a Native American reservation, is it means that they follow Indian law on this reservation. And technically, they're not a US citizen, so they don't have any rights that most US citizens have if they live full time on these reservations. Therefore, that's why they can do things like, seen as they have different gambling laws, etc., etc. But even on some of these small communities of tribes where they're still very traditional, not necessarily in how they portray themselves, but in their thinking, it's believed that they keep it a secret. There's some guys, again, on that documentary that I was telling you about, that are talking about how it's a journalist. I can't remember his name, but he's considered quite credible in the world of Bigfoot. And he has spent a lot of time with these Native American communities and tribes and talking to them and earning their trust. And it's believed that they've got a lot of evidence and stuff that would prove that Bigfoot is real, but they won't share it out of respect of Bigfoot. So again, that I can't prove is fact. That's just, again, another theory that's come up in certain stories. Monty's going for a walk with Chewie. No, I've just got what he's saying. Go for a walk with Chewie, or go for a walk with Spanny, and you'll find something. Okay, I think we've got another question from Kevin. Apart from the Indians, I'm sure the Vikings wrote about them when they landed in North America. I'm not sure about that one. I haven't seen that, but I will certainly look into that, Kevin. That would be interesting to find out. Yeah, I mean, there's still a lot of, again, it was very recent that there was really strong evidence that Vikings did make it all the way to the northern parts of, and more so the top end, like Alaska and Canada, and they did make it to the east coast of America, I believe, as well. And a lot of that's been now dug up and you know, kind of almost proven. Yeah. So, but I don't know about any stories or accounts of them running into Bigfoot or Sasquatch, but I'll definitely look into that. So thank you for sharing that, Kevin. So yeah, one of the things that I mentioned in my special was kind of my my theory on the whole thing, which I think I'll discuss in a different way now. Let me just bring up this slide a moment. Hopefully this is the right one. I believe it is. Yeah, it is. So, yeah, I talked about it a little bit in the special, but my feelings on the whole thing around all of my research that I've done into Bigfoot and Sasquatch and any of the others like the Yowie, etc. I personally believe that 80% of what is shared now on the lovely internet and on social media platforms is pareidolia. It's mistaken identity that people are just not sure of, because there's a lot of people out there that want to believe, or some people kind of probably know it isn't, but they're just throwing it out there because they know it'll get clicks and it'll draw people in. But they didn't go out to intentionally fake it. It's like they took a photograph and just seen a shadow and gone, oh, that could be something. I don't think it is. I didn't see it. I didn't hear anything, but I'll share it and make it out to be more than it is. So I think that 80% is pareidolia. I think that there's only actually a small percentage, 15%, that is hoax or intentionally faked, in my opinion, because actually hoaxing and faking actually takes a long time for most people, or takes effort or consideration or planning. And I just don't think there's that many people out there doing it, but I certainly believe that there are some, and they still account for much more of the percentage than the genuine. And I believe that really only about 5% of anything that's out there is like 100% genuine. And that's sort of leans now that what I can say to you, and what we were talking about just a minute ago, was about the fact that there's not a lot of evidence that I feel is 100. You've got the Patterson and Gimlin footage. You've got some other stuff that I featured in the best of the best. Then you've got some others that are under question, like the Independence Day footage. I've done a G-Star vault on the Independence Day footage. At points, a lot of people have felt that that is definitely something to hold on to, and then others have really scrutinized it. And, depending on who you talk to, it's got a reputation of being a fake or being genuine. But I do believe there's only a handful of real solid bits of evidence out there. And that would probably go to explain that actually these sightings are really super rare. And I think that most of the encounters people just don't get it on camera, even in these days. They're so quick, so fast, so fleeting. And, do we all carry our phones around with us ready to film straight away? And if you did accidentally run into something in the woods in that split moment, are you going to think to naturally get your phone out, or are you going to think about turning around and running? I think there's still a lot out there that's really genuine, but people didn't get to snap it or didn't get to film it, but reading some of the encounters. And that's where I would that's where I would really recommend, if you're really interested in the subject, go more to the written side of the literature side of Bigfoot and Sasquatch, because there's a lot more there. And that's where I've definitely got my knowledge around the Native American connection. So I would always implore everybody to kind of not just, I love looking at the footage, don't get me wrong, because you're always hoping and praying for that one moment. So something I'd like to ask you guys, keep throwing your questions in. That's awesome. And again, we're probably getting to that point where I'm cool if you want to ask me some questions about anything else to do with any other content, whilst we're having this nice little discussion. But something that I just wanted to sort of throw out there that related it back to the special, there was a piece of footage that I covered in there that, again, one of the things that we don't do a lot on this channel is we don't intentionally go out to debunk stuff. We certainly do. I do behind the scenes. Like, there's a lot of stuff that I look at and go, my God, that is just awful. And I can literally rip into it and give examples of why it's not the real deal. But basically, as I said on the special, me and Monty agreed that we weren't going to be that kind of finger pointing sort of channel. We like to more look into something that could be or likely is, but definitely could be. And so I made a bit of an exception because I was a little bit annoyed at this particular footage because it was getting a lot of traction online and a lot of people thinking that it was the real deal. But it was that NVTV footage that I featured, the black and white one. Let me know what your thoughts were in chat now, if you can, if you don't mind. That would be awesome. Because, yeah, I would love to know whether you agree with me or you guys side with a lot of people out there who are thinking that that's the real deal. So let me know what you think. And keep your questions coming because I'm getting pretty much to the end of what I needed to talk about with Bigfoot. But again, I'd highly recommend that documentary, Flash of Beauty. As I'd recommend a lot of stuff, obviously, if you haven't seen it. If you know, Mickey, I'm really hoping you've seen Missing 411 and Missing 411 The Hunted. That's definitely some really good, I don't want to say research, it's more of a documentation and revealing what the documentation shows and just outlining all of these crazy, mysterious cases that potentially could lead to some other form of phenomenon or definitely to Bigfoot or Sasquatch. So if you haven't watched them yet, you definitely have to. But yeah, other than that, there isn't any other documentaries that I've come across recently that are super awesome. I loved recently watching that Thinker Thunker video where he kind of used technology to design the skull and the head of Patty from the Patterson Gimlin footage. And that was really interesting. And again, that guy to me has got so much credibility. And as I was saying earlier, I just watched a video yesterday where he's debunking something and pointing out why it's definitely not genuine. Not that you need him to tell you that, but I was really thankful that somebody with his skills put the, you know, what he did, which is really clever. One of the things that he always talks about, because he's a body mechanics expert, and he always talks about that in genuine footage of Bigfoot or Sasquatch, the arm is always as long as the leg, and or even slightly longer, indicating how long the arms and different to us as humans these creatures are. And basically what he did was took the picture and took the arm off of it and took the leg off of it, pulled them up against each other, and the arm was super short against the leg, same as it is in a human. And he showed an arm and a leg of a human, and then he showed the arm and the leg of Patty, and you can see the definitive difference that you know, the arm of Patty is almost as long as the leg. And you know, so that was really good to watch, but it was nice to see somebody just put their definite imprint on it. Anyway, guys, I think unless the questions keep coming, I've been so happy that I wasn't sitting here talking to myself at the end of the day. Some of you guys join me. I didn't really promote this live stream as well or as much as I could have. But now it's out there for anybody to watch back pre-recorded if they want to. Might have to edit out that whole sequence of picking up my phone and being called in the middle of the live stream. But again, thank you guys so much for tuning in tonight. If you want to get any last minute questions in, I'm more than happy to facilitate. But I can see that I've possibly lost some of you guys. So, oh, Monty said, no, don't edit it. So I know that it's still Monty on board with me. So thank you for sticking around, Monty. But again, I think I'm going to close it up now. Thank you again, guys, for joining in. It's been awesome. That's really interesting, Mickey. I never knew that. So you're not the biggest fan of Mr. Bigfoot, but this has made you take interest. Just out of interest, Mickey, let me know in chat if you can. Did you ever join us for our very initial live stream that we did at the Monty Zone on Bigfoot. Let me know in chat if you've watched that. Reason why I'm asking is because it surprises me that you're not a big fan of Mr. Bigfoot. Yes, Monty, NASA have opened an investigation into UAPs, or they're joining the rest of the government, which is really slightly laughable, given the amount of evidence in the past that they've cut off live streams because people were seeing something on the live stream, etc., and that there's a lot of strong evidence that could say that they are aware of them and been hiding them in the past. However, I was waiting to include that in our live stream at the end of the month because that really connects to what we're covering in that show. Yeah, well, Mickey, if you haven't watched it, obviously it's still out there. The Monty Zone. If you go to the playlist for the Monty Zone, go and watch that one because I think, without talking myself up, and it certainly wasn't just me, but we had 4 people on there, really good discussion, and some information that was presented, which I think made people just turn their head a little bit and go, actually, there could be something to this. And I definitely think there's something to it, and it's as alluring and inspiring for me as UFOs or UAPs, and a lot of the tangible good evidence that comes up, not just the sort of, TikTok rubbish or stuff that you see a lot of the time just in clickbait stuff. So yeah, I definitely think that in both phenomenons there's some real interesting facts, some real interesting evidence, and hopefully that will lead somewhere exciting in the future. Yes, definitely for the next Monty Zone, Monty. We'll be talking about that NASA coming into the investigation and saying that now they're searching for UAPs. Again, if you go back and watch the episode of G Star Vault that that went on just before this live stream, which is called Bob Lazar versus the Pentagon, in there I talk a little bit about smoke screening and climatization, and I think that just seems like another step. If call me dubious, but it just seems surprising with everything that's happened or everything that's been said to connect NASA to the subject that all of a sudden now they're interested in joining the investigation. Good to know that they are, and let's see if something comes of that. But we can discuss that more and come and join us on the next Monty Zone, which I believe is on Friday, June 24th. I think that's what we said, wasn't it, Monty? So yeah. And so join us for that one. Anyway, as said, Kevin, thanks for coming along. Monty, thanks for coming along. Mickey, thanks for coming along. Thank you for all your questions. Thank you to the people that asked me questions before I did the special, and that we're going to be featured on the special, and hopefully I've answered some of them this evening as well. Again, thank you for this one-off standalone live stream. Maybe I'll do more in the future. Maybe this is a good way to have an open discussion with you guys. But maybe in the future I will promote it more. Anyway, guys, awesome to see you. And check out the TNG show with Monty and Mazamet Bob tomorrow. And that'll be awesome. Remember me. And see you for the live stream at the end of June. Good night. Stay safe.